Running a business comes with a lot of what-ifs. But luckily, there's a simple answer to them. Shopify. It's the commerce platform behind millions of businesses, including Thrive Cosmetics and Momofuku, and it'll help you with everything you need. From website design and marketing to boosting sales and expanding operations, Shopify can get the job done and make your dream a reality. Turn those what-ifs into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
This is the Roger Stone Show, presented by Colonial Metals Group.
A man who's gone through hell, but he's kept going, and he's smart, and he's strong, and people love him. Not everybody, but people love him and respect him. Roger Stone.
Now, here's Roger Stone.
As someone who has written a book about the Kennedy assassination, which became a New York Times bestseller, The Man Who Killed Kennedy, The Case Against LBJ, and as someone who urged President Donald Trump in 2017 to release all of the classified documents in the possession of the federal government pertaining to the Kennedy assassination, I obviously greeted his announcement that he would keep his campaign pledge and make all of that information public with great fanfare. I was very pleased, but now having seen a number of the documents that have been released, and with the knowledge that 3,500 records are yet to be released from the official JFK assassination document collection, I, along with others, beginning to wonder whether we're seeing everything. Several weeks ago, I participated in a great Zoom call with a number of JFK researchers, all of whom I have high respect for, but one particularly, Larry Schnapf, stood out as someone who had really thought through how to collect and ensure that we had all the documents. He showed me a very thoughtful letter signed by my friend Congressman Tim Burchett and others to the president, essentially urging him to broaden out his order to ensure that we saw everything. Larry Schnapf is an attorney in New York. He has sued the Biden administration and the National Archives several times. He is commanding knowledge of the documents and the Kennedy assassination, as well as some keen observations about the assassinations of Senator Robert Kennedy and Dr. Martin Luther King. Larry, welcome to the Roger Stone Show.
Thank you. It's quite a privilege to be on your show. And again, I can't underestimate enough to your listeners the important role that you have played to get us to this historic moment where we're at. I mean, without your help, we would not be right here. And the reason I'm coming on also is we need your help to get us across the finish line. We're at third base right now. And I want to commend President Trump for, listening to you and getting us to where we are. We're not quite sure exactly how many records. One of the frustrating things is we're not really quite sure how many records there are in the collection because we get different numbers. The archives has mentioned 3,500, also 3,648. The transparency plans that were approved by President Biden, those are the plans that the CIA and the FBI, their wish list for when they would review records in the future for possible disclosure, they have 4,455. But what we know is that there are 319,000 entries in the collection. That's NARA's number on the website, but that's not complete. There's 1,000 records that we know were supposedly released in 2017 to 2023, which are not in that number. And the central directory of the records that NARA has does not include records from the National Security Agency, that's Series 144, National Security Council, Series 145, the Secret Service, Series 154, and the Army Investigative Records Repository, Series 194. So we know that the collection as it exists right now, the JFK collection, I'm going to call that the collection, even if all of those records were released, we are not at mission accomplished because we know there are records that are outside of the collection that are not in the collection that, and I'll go into more detail in a moment, about what those records are. But I was wondering, I would like to take 5 minutes to let your listeners know how we got to where we are. And this started with the Warren Commission. Earl Warren, when the Warren Commission materials were turned over to the General Services Administration, which at that point, that's the predecessor to the National Archives. They were given an instruction that the only things that could be available were the report and the exhibits. Everything else was supposed to be subject to the then existing presidential executive order about national security grounds. And the issue is that, as we learned in 1975, I'm going to tell you in a minute, the Warren Commission was never given the authority to classify records. Unlike the Rockefeller Commission, when President Ford created the Rockefeller Commission, he expressly said in his executive order that they have the power to classify records. The Warren Commission was never given that ability to classify records. So from the get-go, they violated their charter and also the law by classifying records. And then when a mayor from Cedar Rapids, Mayor Johnson, found out that at that point in time, in those days, records would be hidden for 75 years. He was flabbergasted in 1965 that 75 years would apply to the Kennedy records. So the Department of Justice came up with some guidelines in the mid-'60s for releasing records, but nothing was done during that period of time. And then in 1972, President Nixon shortened the period of time, and he did a new executive order, shortening it from 75 to 30. Well, Bella Abzug had a committee hearing in 1975 November about how the FOIA law was not helping release the records in the Kennedy assassination. One of her speakers was David Bellin, and he admitted that the Warren Commission did not have the authority to classify records. And in fact, he said, none of us had classification security so that we could not be looking at secured records to begin with. So what happened then also was then the House Select Assassinations Committee has their study, and the House had rules that their unpublished information would be classified for 30 years. So we have all these records that are being withheld, and then the Oliver Stone movie comes out, and at the end of the movie, he talks about these millions of records that have been withheld. And so the Congress passes the JFK Records Act to basically do two things. One is to order the agencies to scour their records for JFK assassination records because they were spread throughout the government. And then they were supposed to be turned over to the National Archives and disclosed unless the agencies requested postponement. At that point in time, the Record Review Board was supposed to review these postponements. And if the agencies objected to a decision to disclose, they could appeal to the president. And the Record Review Board operated from 95 to 98. And at the end of 98, they went out of business, not because the job was done, but because Congress stopped funding them. And when they went out of business in 98, they had outstanding search requests to the CIA. They were trying to get records from the Robert Kennedy Family Trust. They had held records that Bobby Kennedy took an hour after the assassination, took records from the Oval Office and kept them. And we don't know what those records say. They were trying to get those records. There was records from Walter Sheridan, Bobby's right-hand man, who did his own investigation for Bobby. The ARB asked for those records, and because he also did some work for NBC, he took those records and transferred them to NBC, and NBC refused to turn them over. So after the Records Review Board goes out of business, the records that were postponed were supposed to be scheduled for disclosure in 2017, October 26th. President Trump announces on the 24th he's going to release the records. And then at the last minute, they get postponed. So I filed a lawsuit against the National Archives to get all the underlying correspondence. And what I found out was the National Archives actually issued memos to the CIA and the FBI saying that their grounds for postponement did not comply with the law and did not comply with the interpretations of the review board. They got overruled by the National Security Council, and the records were postponed twice. And then President Biden, again, did the same thing. They didn't use the criteria under the statute, and they came up with these transparency plans that would, again, not necessarily automatically release the documents, but provide for periods in the future when they could be reviewed. Now, when Congress passed the JFK Act, at that point in time, the records would have been released in 2029. the transparency plans, which are and transparency plan is an Orwellian term. It uses non-statutory criteria. And the transparency plans, the earliest review period would be the mid-2040s. In other words, the transparency plans that the President Biden approved actually provide for a longer period of time than the original classification. That was the reason that Congress passed the law in the first place.
Larry, when we come back, we're going to get into what you think is missing. I'll tell you what I think is missing. Some of it's kind of obvious. Where is the conversation between CIA Director John McCone and Lyndon Johnson immediately after? There's no transcript of it. There's no tape of it. That's one of the many things I want to talk about on the other side. Thank you for setting the table and explaining to people how we got to where we are today. We'll be right back with more of lawyer Larry Schnapf and what is missing from these JFK assassination documents and their release by the administration. Whatever you do, don't touch that dial.
This is the Roger Stone Show.
Fellas, you know Degree Cool Rush deodorant, right? Well, last year they changed the formula, and guys were mad about it. One dude even started a petition. So guess what? Degree heard us, admitted they messed up, and brought the original Cool Rush scent back exactly how it was. And it's in Walmart, Target, and other stores now for under $4. So grab some and remember why its cool, crisp, and fresh scent made it the #1 men's antiperspirant for the last decade. Degree Cool Rush is back, and it smells like victory for all of us.
This episode is brought to you by MeUndies. Underwear drawers are like the Wild West. You never know what you're going to pull out or what shape it's in. So upgrade your collection with the buttery soft comfort of MeUndies. MeUndies' signature fabric is as soft as a warm hug from your favorite sweater. Plus, it's breathable and oh so comfy, making it ideal for all-day wear. Get 20% off your first order, plus free shipping at MeUndies.com/Spotify with code SPOTIFY. That's MeUndies.com/Spotify, code SPOTIFY.
Hey guys, have you heard of Goldbelly? It's this amazing site where they ship the most iconic famous foods from restaurants across the country, anywhere, nationwide. I've never found a more perfect gift than food. They ship Chicago deep dish pizza, New York bagels, Maine lobster rolls, and even Ina Garten's famous cakes. So if you're looking for a gift for the food lover in your life, head to goldbelly.com and get 20% off your first order with promo code GIFT.
This episode is brought to you by Factor. Optimize your nutrition this year with Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal service. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved, ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Choose from 40 weekly options across 8 dietary preferences like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Eat smarter at factormeals.com/listen50 and use code listen50 for 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Factormeals.com/listen50, code listen50. T's and C's apply.
Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, George W. Bush, and Donald Trump.
They went after a guy named Roger Stone, who's sitting in the office. And I'll say this in front of Roger, he's no baby. And right now, he's cleaner than anybody in this place. No, they treated him very unfairly.
All of these presidents relied on one man to secure their seat in the Oval Office. That man is Roger Stone.
Roger Stone.
This is the Roger Stone Show, presented by Colonial Metals Group. Now, here's Roger Stone.
And we're back. We're talking to Larry Schnapf, an attorney who has sued the National Archives and the Biden administration and is convinced, as I am, that what we have so far is a woefully incomplete record regarding records that pertain to the Kennedy assassination. One thing that occurs to me, Larry, is where is the Nix film? This is the film by Orville Nix, a witness to the assassination of President Kennedy, who was filming with an 8mm camera on the opposite side of Dealey Plaza from the more famous Abraham Zapruder, who was filming from the opposite angle. It also captured the presidential motorcade, including the moment of the fatal shot to Kennedy's head and the Grassley Knoll. But Nix, who was an air conditioning engineer, now passed away, used a Keystone auto zoom camera to document the event. starting as the limousine turned onto Houston Street and moving to capture the shooting on Elm Street. Where, for example, is that film, Larry?
Well, it's interesting. His granddaughter, I think it is, filed a lawsuit recently, and in the lawsuit, the government admits that they actually had possession of it at some point, and they don't know what happened to it. It was, I guess it was sent out to get analyzed, and it either never came back or it got lost when it came back. There were two other important films that NBC is holding, the Darnell film and the Wegman film, which are potentially exculpatory for Oswald, because some people think that those films could show Oswald on the steps of the depository building, not on the sixth floor, but NBC has refused to turn them over. One of the things I'm going to be doing is making a recommendation to Representative Luna that she issue subpoenas to the NBC executives for both these two films and for the Walter Sheridan files. They want to get their sale approved for Comcast, and I think that maybe Commissioner Carr could use this as an opportunity and for the public interest to force NBC to release these things. You were on the break, as we broke away, you mentioned something really interesting about this McCone. I was talking to David Kaiser this morning about this very matter. He wrote The Road to Dallas. Most people have been focusing on the Schlesinger memo being released, but the Family Jewels memo, paragraph 10, talks about McCone's. I guess they had a listening device in McCone's office. And where are those recordings? McCone was the director of the CIA at the time of the assassination. So that's an interesting observation you made. I mean, that's, people haven't focused on the Family Jewels in a long time. But there's other memos and information that we need. So there's the outstanding search requests that the ARB made in 1998 to the CIA. National Archives was supposed to follow up, and they never did. There's the RFK files that we think now are in the National Declassification Center. They were in the library. There's another important set of CIA records called the Heath memos. Donald Heath was a CIA person. He conducted a previously unknown investigation the weekend of the assassination through this spring in Miami of anti-Castro exiles. They submitted daily reports, situation reports, to headquarters. In 1977, he notified the HSCA of the existence of these reports. They were in some room. He last saw them in 73. These have never been seen. We need to get these records. There is Carlos Marcello. There's a tape of Carlos Marcello when he was in jail in the mid-1980s under the Camtex sting operation, where he allegedly said he was behind the assassination. Maybe he funded it. But that tape has been under seal. Now, President Trump did say the other day that he had instructed the Department of Justice to unseal these sealed records. So maybe another 30 days or so before we get to see those. But there's also FBI files on Carlos Marcello that have not been completely released, as well as LDO Davali. So we have a bunch of records that are outside of the collection. President Trump's order said the federal government should disclose all records in its possession. And that's not limited to the collection. And unfortunately, I think because Tulsi Gabbard and Pam Bondi are new, they don't realize that the collection does not represent all of the records in the possession of the federal government. So what we have to do is get them to instruct the agencies to complete these searches for these records. Now, the other thing is there's this Manchester interview, 6 sets of transcripts of interviews, 4 with Jackie and 2 with Robert Kennedy between 64 and 65. They were given to the National Archives as under a deed of gift, which says they can't be released till 2667. We may have to get the law amended to release these records, or ask the Kennedy family, particularly Carolyn, to be able to release these records so we can see. Apparently, Bobby and Jackie did not believe that the president was killed by a lone gunman, and we got to see what they were said in 1964 and 65.
I also recently pointed out the emergence of one of the Watergate tapes in which Richard Nixon is meeting with CIA Director Richard Helms, and he's beginning to pressure Helms for help in the Watergate scandal, which is beginning to engulf him. And he says, there's dirty business going on over there. I know all about it. Needed to be done. And when Helms pretend like he doesn't know what Nixon is talking about, he says, let me put it this way. I know who shot John. I mean, there it is. Until Tucker Carlson aired that I guess on his new show, on his new platform, it was largely unknown and had never come to the attention of the various Watergate scholars. Somehow Woodward and Bernstein missed this. The fact that the 4 of the Watergate burglars were on the ground in Dealey Plaza on November 22nd, 1963. The fact that, as I have written, the paraffin test conducted by the Dallas police indicates that Oswald has no powder burns on his chest or his arms or his hands on the day that he has allegedly fired a $26 World War II vintage Carcano Army carbine. Larry, it seems to me like we have to hope that Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna will listen to your list and the documented list of things that we are missing. I agree with you. We are very far from knowing everything. We've learned some shocking things, the activities of James Jesus Angleton, the CIA's clear knowledge, but everything I've seen so far seems to be oriented towards trying to convince us, once again, that Lee Harvey Oswald, a lone nut, a Russian communist, shot and killed John F. Kennedy with 3 shots, all from behind, acting alone.
Yeah, the one thing that came out this last week was that memo from the KGB guy, where the KGB, they were trying to find out whether the KGB was running Oswald, and the guy said the KGB concluded Oswald was a lousy shot.
Yeah, it does kind of say it so.
This is the Roger Stone Show.